15th, 2007. On a minibus leaving a building in Karnal, India, a young couple had just been legally married. They sat close together, their eyes shining with faith and hope, knowing full well that the world around them was out to tear their happiness apart. Manoj and Babli, two young Jats who fell in love and fought all odds to be together. But to the village where they were born, their love was a scandal, an unforgivable sin. Within hours, they were stopped, kidnapped, disappeared, and not long after that they could be found in a quiet canal, tied, tortured, and stiff-necked to death. An honor killing has occurred, but this is not just a tragedy of a young couple. This is the first time in Indian history that a village council, Khap Panchayat, has been brought to criminal trial. Let us follow every trace, every testimony, and every tear to understand what love deserved to die like that. Manoj Banwala, 23, lives in Karora village, Kaithal district, Haryana. He is an ordinary man, not rich, not outstanding, but gentle, kind, and hardworking. Born into the Jat community, which is very attached to clan rules, Manoj grew up in a very traditional environment, but his heart chose a different path. Babli, just 19 years old, comes from Bamla village, also in the same district, same Jat caste. Active, intelligent, and more educated than the average rural girl, Babli soon shows her strength and personality. When she meets Manoj, love is inevitable. The two are from the same gotra, the same clan according to the traditional Hindu way of counting. That means they are forbidden to love and marry according to the unwritten village law, because the local society considers it a relationship of spiritual incest. Babli's family, especially his brother Suresh, his paternal uncle, and many other relatives, not only strongly opposed the relationship, but also considered it an affront to the entire clan. In their minds, Babli's marriage to someone of the same gotra was a disgrace to the family's honor and a disgrace to their ancestral traditions. As soon as they learned about it, they immediately took the matter to the Khap Panchayat, an unsanctioned but influential village council in rural North India. There they issued a verdict that erased the couple, effectively punishing them for death without a court order. Manoj and Babli knew the danger that awaited them. They fled to the carnal court, which issued them a legal marriage certificate. They were also protected by the police on court orders. But in a society where village law is sometimes stronger than the law of the land, that was not enough. Just days after the wedding, they were kidnapped by Babli's own relatives with the help of a local policeman. And so, the tragedy was set, just waiting for the curtain to close. When Babli ran away with Manoj, the entire village of Bamla was shocked. For her family, especially her brother Suresh, it was not just an act of disrespect, it was an indelible shame. They believed that Babli had broken the biggest taboo, marrying someone from the same gotra, an act considered social incest in local beliefs. The family did not try to negotiate, but immediately convened the Khap Panchayat, a village council of elders that is influential in the Jat region of Haryana. The Khap Panchayat quickly issued an informal verdict. They are an illegitimate couple. They have defiled the gotra and the ancestral tradition. They must be abolished. Despite India's modern legal system, in many rural areas like Kaithal, the Khap is still considered the ultimate authority. And when a Khap issues a verdict, the village members are bound to carry it out as a sacred duty. Knowing the danger, Manoj and Babli immediately left the village and went to the city of Karnal, about 120 kilometers away. There, they filed a marriage application and were recognized by the court as legally married under the Indian Marriage Act. Not stopping there, the couple also applied for police protection, fearing retaliation. The court agreed, ordering them to be provided with protection during their stay. They seemed safe, but the net had been set before. A police officer named Ravinder Singh, who was a close friend of Babli's family, had revealed the couple's location to her relatives. This was a serious offense, but it went undetected until after the crime. On June 15, 2007, Manoj and Babli went to the Karnal court for the second hearing of their protection application. After the hearing, they left the court on a public bus, believing that everything was in order. But the men who had been lurking outside, silently watching for days, were ready to strike. The couple appealed to the authorities. They had legal papers. They followed the legal process. But in the middle of rural Haryana, that could not save them from the cruelty of family honor and archaic laws. As the bus rolled out of Karnal, no one knew that it would be the last trip of Manoj and Babli's life. Afternoon of June 15, 2007, Karnal, Haryana. It was hot, but on the crowded bus leaving the court, Manoj and Babli held each other's hands tightly. From their eyes, you could see that they were both relieved and nervous. Finally, the court had approved their petition for protection. They planned to take a taxi to the big city, find a new place to live, and start over. But that dream lasted less than an hour. The car had just turned out of the center of Karnal and entered a remote stretch of the highway when a group of men on motorbikes blocked the way. They forced the driver to stop. One of the men went to the car door and pointed at the middle row of seats. "Manoj and Babli, get out of the car." Babli panicked. "No, we are legally married. You can't do this." Manoj stood in front of his wife and shouted, "The police will arrest you if you touch us." But no one came to help. The driver silently bowed his head. The passengers held their breath. 5 men rushed in and dragged the two from their seats. Babli struggled, cried, and clung to her fiancé's hand. But no one could stop the determination of those who carried the so-called honor in their hearts. They were forced into a silver jeep and disappeared into the dusty village road. From then on, Manoj and Babli were never seen alive again. They were taken to a deserted farm near Bamla village where Babli grew up. There, Babli's relatives, led by her brother Suresh, her uncle Rajender, and 3 other relatives, tied Manoj's hands and beat him until his ribs were broken. Babli was stripped of her headgear, forced to kneel, and forced to confess. When Babli pleaded, "We just want to live together," her uncle growled, "Death is a mercy for the disgrace you have caused." They were strangled to death. No knives, no guns, just cold hands and an eerie silence. The bodies were tied tightly, tied to large rocks, and thrown into the Gotra Canal, the icy stream that ran through the fields. No one reported them missing. No one called for help. The perpetrators returned home as if nothing had happened. 3 days later, a local farmer noticed a strange stench coming from the canal. The police were called. They pulled up a body bag. Manoj's body, then Babli's, his hair wet, his face purple, his hands still tied. But even though the bodies had floated, the crime was still being covered up. No one admitted it, no one said anything. The whole village of Bamla was silent, as if the 2 men had never existed. Only one person refused to be silent, Yogesh Banwala, Manoj's brother. And it was he who made this case a landmark in Indian justice. June 20th, 2007. A farmer was walking along the Gotra Canal, a large canal that cuts through rural Kaithal, when he smelled a strong stench coming from the rocky shore. As he approached, he was shocked to find a large bag floating in the water, revealing a partially bloated human body, its limbs bound. The local police were immediately alerted. They fished the bag out and found the body of a young man, followed a few hours later by a woman, both strangled, tied up, with no identification papers. But everyone knew, without the need for forensic evidence. The whole area whispered that it was Manoj and Babli, the couple who had dared to marry illegally and had disappeared a few days earlier. When the news reached Manoj's family, his brother Yogesh Banwala was devastated, but he would not let his brother and sister-in-law die in silence. Yogesh immediately went to collect the body, reported it to the district police, and pointed the finger at those he believed were responsible. Babli's family, including his brother Suresh, his uncle Rajender, and 3 other relatives. He also stressed, the police knew the threat posed by the Khap Panchayat. They still let Manoj and Babli be kidnapped in broad daylight. The initial response from the local police was weak. Despite a plea for protection, and despite clear suspicions from the victims' families, no one was immediately arrested. Even the police officer Ravinder Singh, who is believed to have helped reveal the couple's location, continued to work as usual in the early days. The community, the press, and even the Indian parliament began to ask, why didn't the police act quickly? Was the legal system afraid of the cops' invisible power? It was only when the press got involved, especially major newspapers like The Hindu, NDTV, Indian Express, that public pressure forced the investigating agency to initiate a prosecution. Photographs of the bodies, accounts from local people, and excerpts of the erasure verdict from the Khap Panchayat sparked outrage across the country. For the first time, a community was confronted with the question, what honor is worth taking 2 lives? Yogesh Banwala did not stop. He gathered evidence, witnesses, filed a petition, and fought persistently for many years. Thanks to him, the case was not buried like hundreds of other honor killings that have been buried in the dark. And finally, a historic trial was opened. At the Kaithal Hospital morgue, forensic doctors examined the bodies of Manoj and Babli. Manoj showed signs of multiple soft tissue injuries, broken ribs, collapsed lungs, and was strangled with a cloth rope or bare hands. Babli had fewer injuries, but had signs of being tied up and also died of asphyxiation, apparently strangulation. Both were tied with old ropes, and their clothes had traces of mud and buffalo dung, typical of the riverside area of Bamla village. The forensic diagnosis confirmed. The deaths occurred on the night of June 15th or early morning of June 16th, just hours after they were taken from the bus. This was an organized murder, not random. Investigator R.S. Dalal, a veteran officer from the Haryana police, was assigned to the case. Under pressure from the public, he began to review CCTV cameras at the Karnal court gate. The suspicious motorcycle and jeep were identified. Witnesses, the bus driver and some passengers confirmed. 5 men surrounded and forced Manoj and Babli out of the vehicle. Testimonies from villagers. One anonymous person gave a statement. That night I saw a jeep driving towards the old farm, without lights on. Within 2 weeks, the police had arrested 7 people. Suresh, Babli's brother, Rajender, his uncle, 3 close relatives, the jeep driver, and most notably, the police officer Ravinder Singh, accused of assisting by revealing the victim's whereabouts. At first, everyone was silent. No one confessed. They kept repeating, "We don't know anything." It's a shame that she ran away from home. But faced with the incontrovertible evidence, fingerprints, witnesses, the car's GPS, and matching pieces of rope, each of them began to waver. The jeep driver, after several days in custody, suddenly confessed. He said, "I was hired to take them to the farm. When I got there, I heard screams. I didn't see anyone killed, but I knew for sure what had happened." Next came a relative who cried when confronted with the image of the body. "We don't hate Manoj, but the cop ordered it. If we didn't do it, my whole family would be expelled, ostracized from the village." What the Khap Council once called protecting tradition is now revealed to be an organized murder plot. "There is nothing noble about it," Dalal told reporters. "It is a cold-blooded crime disguised as honor." Nearly 3 years after the case, in March 2010, the special court at Kaithal formally opened the criminal trial of 7 accused, including Suresh Kumar, Babli's brother, Rajender Singh, paternal uncle, 3 relatives directly involved in the kidnapping, police officer Ravinder Singh, prosecuted for abetting the crime, Ganga Raj, Panchayat head, accused of unofficially issuing death sentences. This was the first time in the history of Indian judiciary that a Panchayat head was tried for complicity in murder. Prosecutor Sanjay Vashisht opened with a stern statement. They did not defend their honor. They murdered 2 young people, protected by the law, for daring to love and marry each other. Evidence presented to the court. CCTV footage from the Karnal courthouse of the couple leaving the courtroom, jeep driver's testimony, witnesses on the bus, post-mortem results, rope samples, and injuries matching those recovered. The defendants repeatedly denied the charges, saying they had nothing to do with the deaths. They did not know where the couple were. They were framed by Manoj's family. Ganga Raj, the cop chief, told the court, "I was just passing on the traditional rules. We did not order the killing. But the judge countered, "A person in power whose words cause death cannot escape responsibility." The trial drew hundreds of people, activists and journalists from across India. Human rights groups have described it as the opening act of India's fight against honor killings. Manoj's mother, when she took the stand in court, simply said, "He just wanted to live with the person he loved. Did he deserve to die?" On the 30th of March 2010, after 3 years of investigation and several months of trial, the Kaithal court sentenced 5 main accused, including Babli's brother and uncle. Death sentence, suspended on appeal. Police officer Ravinder Singh, 5 years in prison for abetting and disclosing information. Ganga Raj, Chief Khap, life in prison for inciting and assisting in organizing murder. Immediately after the verdict, Manoj's family burst into tears. Yogesh, who has been fighting for justice for 3 years, tearfully said, "I promised my brother that I would not let him die unjustly." Outside the court, people held banners thanking the court and demanding that Parliament enact strict laws against honor killings. Manoj and Babli, 2 young people who fell in love, got married, and were killed by their own families, by their own village, in the name of something called honor. But in the end, they themselves became symbols. Symbols of love that transcends tradition, of justice reclaimed from silence and blood. This case changed Indian law. For the first time, a village council was convicted of inciting murder. For the first time, an entire nation had to rethink the concept of honor, which was once used to kill its own children. And if there is anything we should remember from this story, it is, love is never a crime. Murder is always a crime. If you find this story worthy of spreading, please like and subscribe to the channel. To not miss out on real cases, thank you for joining us on today's journey. We hope you enjoy this content and find it valuable.